Hello everybody and welcome to Eurosport's highlights coverage of the 2015 Vassa Loppa. The longest, the oldest and the largest cross-country ski race in the world. 90 kilometers starting in Salon, winding its way ultimately to Mora, but through the number of checkpoints: Smagen, Mangsbordana, Risberg, Evertsberg, Oxberg, Hochberg, Eldris and Mora. A couple of sprints in there as well, as you can see at Mangsbordana after 24 kilometers, and at Evertsberg at 47 kilometers, so just after halfway. Conditions, well, as you can see, they're overcast, but it's also very, very warm. And this is where we are. We're in the county of Dalarna, and this Google animation shows you the slight rise out of the start towards the first checkpoint at Smagen. Then comes the first sprint at Mangsbordana. 15,800 people registered to take part, although about 14,000 started the race. And Oxberg, 28 kilometers from the finish. Hochberg, well, we're getting near the end now, 19 Ks to go. Eldris will give us a last split check. And in terms of safety, there's stop times at each of those checkpoints. If people don't make it in time, they're not allowed to continue. Now, at the start there was a problem with the start wire, which caused a little bit of confusion to start with. It was happened about 4 seconds before it should have gone up, and several skiers got themselves caught in the wiring system. However, they eventually managed to get everybody away, and in the end the jury decided that it didn't adversely affect the outcome of the race. All manner of people taking part in the Vassa Loppa, which is part of the Swiss Ski Classic tour, if you like. It was realised after, well, back in 2007, with the Vassa Loppa being so popular, that the way to try and market it would be to combine a lot of existing international and traditional long-distance cross-country races. So the Vassa Loppa is the 7th of 9 in this season's schedule. We've already been to Livigno in Italy, had a couple of races there. Bedřichov in the Czech Republic, Samoritz in Switzerland, the Val di Fiemme in Italy, Obermagau in Germany. We're here, the Vassa Loppa. Then we go to Lillehammer, and then the final event of the season is in Åre, also in Sweden. It's usually held on the first Sunday of March, but because of the World Ski Championships, the Nordic World Ski Championships in Falun, which is only 100 kilometers down the road, decided to run it on the second Sunday this year, and it was fully booked out in 1.5 minutes when registration opened in March 2014. Forty different nations participating in this year's event. As you can see, plenty of standing water on the course with these warm temperatures as we come towards the end of the season. And for the second year in a row, there were over 2,000 ladies registered for the Vassa Loppa, 15% of the field. An incredible spectacle as the 14,000 competitors push their way out of the starting area. The start field, 52 tracks in breadth. And really tough going at the start of the race. A number of the races have been shortened this year because of the lack of snow. The third event in the Czech Republic, then the La Dionella in St. Moritz, the Merkelanga in Valle de Fiemme, and the König Ludwig Lauf in Oberngau, Germany, all shortened. But here in Sweden, the full 90 kilometers was raced. A number of different start groups. The first 100 have numbers corresponding to their placement in last year's race, and they also have their names printed on the bibs. But the first leader was the Swede Anders Södergren, who escaped from the pack early on. Sweden, who last saw a male victor back in 2012, desperate for more success this year, but you can see the sheer number of people causing some difficulties in that bottleneck as they go up into the forest. But once out into the forest, they strung out. And all of these chasing down Anders Södergren of Sweden. In terms of weather for the athletes, it's not too bad at all for them, but Södergren, as you can see, eked himself out a fairly sizable early lead over the first 10 kilometers or so, as he worked his way up towards the first checkpoint at Smorgon, which was after 11 kilometers. And here is the first checkpoint in Smorgon. Plenty of liquid to be taken on board, and the potion of choice in the Vassa Loppet is blueberry soup. $44,000 litres of blueberry soup consumed during the race by the competitors. So Södergren was the leader at the first checkpoint in Smorgon, and his lead was fairly sizable after the opening 11 kilometers. Plenty of support for the local racer, and his lead over the chasing pack over a minute and 19 or so to Rezak on the Czech Republic. But all the main protagonists in there, the likes of Auckland, Pedersen, Dahl, and there was plenty of race left for them to eat into that 1 minute lead of Södergren. So Anders Ökland and John Christian Dahl were in close attendance, just 10 seconds separating Auckland from last year's winner Dahl. Dahl racing with 1 to reflect his win last year. But Auckland, who missed last year due to illness, is the leader of the Swiss Ski Classic Championship right now. Now, Anders Nygaard of Norway was into an early second place as he tried to chase down the Swede Södergren, and he was eating into that lead, and the pack, in fact, as you can see, had the leader in their sights. So as Nygaard made his way up to Södergren, could the two of them work together to try and extend the lead over the pack at this very early stage in the race? It's been going just over an hour when Nygaard caught and then passed Södergren. And Nygaard not wanting to give Södergren the drag, changing his tracks and powering away from the Swede. So Södergren would have to try and find something from somewhere at this early stage to get back to Nygaard. Welcome back to Eurosport's highlights coverage of the Vassa Lopa, and you join us as the racers arrive at the second checkpoint at Mangs Bordana, which is about 24 kilometers into the race, and at this stage everyone was chasing down bib number 6, Andreas Nygaard of Norway, who had caught and passed our early leader Anders Södergren of Sweden. Well, as they came up to Mangs Bordani, you can see that Nygaard's lead was not that substantial over the chasing pack. The helicopter camera giving us a great angle of that lead. And Nygaard trying to eke out as much as possible, as he also wins the classic sprints, the first of 2. Stop the clock at 1 hour 7 minutes 5 seconds, and the volunteers offering refreshment, but Nygaard declining and going through. Now coming through in second spots was Ireland, then Auckland and Austin Pedersen, Eriksson, Eliasson, Rezak, Berda Rezak, of course, who was second at the first intermediate, still in that chasing pack, but 17 racers would, or 16 were chasing down Nygaard, with Damon just dropping off the back of the chasing pack. Well, the chasing pack at this stage was being led by Anders Södergren, who had been the early leader. And looking over his shoulder, perhaps wanting a couple of others to join in. Behind him, Gustav Eriksson, number 206. Anders Holst, number 14. Also there, Simon Ostensen in the yellow suit, number 35. And last year's winner, John Christian Dahl, the second yellow suit back. Now, the women's race, it was Britta Johansson Norgren of Sweden that was leading the way from Sarina Bonner of Switzerland. Those two way out in front. And, well, Justyna Kowalczyk of Poland would come through some way down in 7th place. She was 2 minutes and 8 seconds off the pace, having been 3:24 at the first intermediate. Kowalczyk breaking a stick at the start and basically having real difficulty with only one pole, but managing to get back into the race. She's still in touch with a long way still to go for the women. So while the women went through the checkpoint, back up front in the men's race, it was still Andreas Nygaard of Norway that was leading the way. And as you can see, his best result from this season coming in the last round in the König Ludwig Lauf in Germany, which was on the 1st of February. So over a month between events 6 and 7 on the Swiss Ski Classic calendar. Coming up to an hour and a half into the race, not even halfway. Just under 60 kilometers of the 90 to go. The leading pack being chased now, or being led, should I say, by Anders Auckland, who's the leader in the standings, hence why the yellow bib. Behind him is Peter Eliasson, number 131. And Eliasson and Auckland setting the pace at the front of the chasing pack. And Auckland, winner of this race back in 2004. So, coming up to Riesberg, that is where the leading races were for both the men's and the women's race. Riesberg was the next checkpoint, the third checkpoint, 35 kilometers into the race. And coming into Riesberg, it was still Andreas Nygaard out on his own, trying to keep away from the chasing pack. But his lead was being cut down all the time. 1.5 hours just over at Riesberg for Nygaard. And the chasing pack were just over 20 seconds behind. Auckland leading the way from Horst, Arlen, Austin, Eliasson, Eriksson. And a number of these leading races, parts of teams as well. As the organisers look to combine a number of races within the calendar. But the leading pack have been whittled down to just 12 athletes now, chasing down Nygaard. Gerdalen and Impala just being dropped off the chasing pack. But Nygaard what, 3 minutes later, realising that his time at the front had been done, and just standing up and allowing the chasing pack to come back to him. Little chat with his compatriot Anders Auckland. Confirmation of the standings at Riesberg. It's Nygaard from Auckland, Hurst, Arlen. Look at Norway there, really looking to crowd out the top 10, in fact the top 12. So with 50 kilometres to go, the men's race still very much up to grabs. A leading group of about 14. And having his turn at the front was Simon Ostensen of Norway. In the women's standing, it was still Johansen Nordigan, about 9 seconds over Bonner. Then Kveli of Norway is in third, and Kowalczyk of Poland was now just, what, 1.5 minutes back on the Swedish leader. So another break in the leading group. After 48 kilometres. Still Ostensen leading the way, but then a big burst of speed from Anders Auckland. Trying to split the pack up even more. Eliasson quick to respond to the burst of speed. Ostensen as well. But the Norwegian trio leading the pack. Jerry Arlen, number 23. The Swede back in 4th place. As again they look to exchange the lead to try and keep the tempo high, with the men approaching Evertsberg, the second sprint, just after halfway of this race. Welcome back, and you join us with the leading group arriving at the 4th checkpoint at Evertsberg, which was just over, or is just over, halfway of this Vassa course. And the racers have been going for just over 2 hours as they came towards the 4th checkpoint. And again, the field, well, the leader's still very tightly bunched, with just a couple starting to drop off the back as they are whittled down to the main protagonists come the end of the race. Remember, Evertsberg also the second of the Swiss Ski Classic sprints. And the sun just starting to poke its head out from behind the clouds, and again leading the way was Anders Auckland in the middle. Made the way up the hill past the 43 kilometres marker. Last year's winner, Jon Christian Dahl, just going through a difficult patch as he is at the back of the chasing group. fact, last year's runner-up, just in front of him, Johan Kjolstad. But it's Rezak, the Czech Republic skier, who came through the time check first from Eriksson, and then Auckland and Pedersen in the green bib, leading the sprint standings. 16 seconds, just under 17, separating the top 12, with last year's winner at the back of that group. So these 12 had a big lead over the rest of the field, or the skiers that came here with thoughts of winning. And the next 40 kilometers would decide which 3 of these 12 would end up on the podium. Just at this point, there were 6 skiers just starting to break away. And in there was Eliasson, Rezak, Auckland, Arlem. Trying to make use of the terrain change to eke out a small advantage. So the standings in the sprints, it's Rezak with the 40 points. It's Anders Nygaard, who now takes over at the top from Pedersen, and Eliasson in 3rd, Auckland 4th, and Dahl in 5th. Norway rounding off that top 5 standings. In the women's race, Stina Kowalczyk 5:13, the women racing in yellow bibs. She was now leading, having had a really poor start with breaking her pole. But had put that misfortune behind it to get in front of Britta Johansson Norgen and Sarina Bonner of Switzerland, who had been the early leaders in the women's race. Kowalczyk in amongst a group of men, but quickly moving to the front and almost cutting up bib number 60. And getting a helping hand as well, trying to keep the pole out of her face. But Kowalczyk setting a blistering pace in the women's race. And having no company at all in terms of rivals for the women's title. It's whether or not she had wasted too much or given too much in order to get back from the early setback of breaking her pole. Well, the leading group come back together, and they were approaching Augsburg, the 5th checkpoint, after 62 kilometers. Kowalczyk approaching the 55-kilometer mark. So 28 kilometers for the men to race once they pass through this point. Racing for near enough 3 hours, almost 3/4 of the race done. And leading the way was Auckland from Pedersen Dahl. Last year's winner had found his form again, back up into third. But a tightly knit group, which had now been whittled down to 11. So with all the top 11 so tightly bunched, the teams getting their supplies, and you can see Auckland just dropping back as he takes on that bum bag full of supplies. But Kowalczyk continued to set the pace in the women's race, showing no sign of let up in her technique. Brilliant performance from Kowalczyk so far, and she still had just over 30 kilometers of the 2015 Vassa Lopa to race. The snow not really improving, still very wet. And the men's standings, as you can see, Kolstad just being dropped from that chasing group, or the leading group of 12, now down to 11. But Anders Auckland was leading from Peter Eliasson, and Pedersen behind Eliasson. So Norway 1, 2, 3 with 21 kilometers of this race still to go. And Auckland trying to keep that tempo as high as possible, splitting the group. Just has two fellow Norwegians for company. But while Auckland was trying to break up the men's race, Kowalczyk of Poland had already achieved that in the women's race, and she was coming up towards the 5th checkpoint in Oxburg. A bit of difficulty with parts of the snow condition. Kowalczyk would stop the clock at Oxburg in a time of 3 hours, 9 minutes, 11 seconds. As she continued to set a blistering pace in this women's race. Well, as for the men, it was Auckland, Pedersen and Eliasson, with Rezak of the Czech Republic just off the back of the three Norwegians. Had the pace of Anders Auckland finally split up the leading pack. Rezak trying all he could to stay in touch with the three Norwegians, but looking like he was really struggling. Well, the super sprinter in Hochberg was the next checkpoint, and Auckland continued its relentless pace at the front of this leading four. And Rezak suddenly putting in a spurt up the right-hand side. Remember, Rezak had taken the Swiss Ski Classic sprint back in Evertsberg, and he wanted to take the points here in Hochberg as well. And Rezak did do just that from Auckland, then Eliasson and Pedersen in fourth. The leading four very tightly bunched coming through the water station. And those four, well, their lead over John Christian Dahl, last year's winner, around the 30-second marker. Jerry Arlim, the best of the Swedes, in sixth position, but he was 41 seconds off the pace. And it's looking rather like Sweden. We're going to have to wait another year for a male winner. But the four leaders, just 17.5 kilometers to go, we're setting a blistering pace, and Auckland, as he had done for large parts of this one, was still at the front of the group, in front of Eliasson. In the women's race, Kowalczyk was still under no pressure from her competitors. As she came through Augsburg, she had a lead of over 2 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes over Bonner, with Johansen Norgen almost 3 minutes down, Kveli of Norway 4:20 down. So Kowalczyk a long way out in front in this women's race at the 61-kilometer mark in Augsburg. So a lead of nearly 3 minutes over Britta Johansen Norgen at this stage for Kowalczyk. But the men, with 12.8 kilometers to go, it was basically 3 from 4, with Eliasson, Auckland, Rezak and Pedersen still battling it out for top honours at the 2015 Vassa Loppa. So the 90-kilometre Vassa Loppa was going to boil down to the final 12 kilometres in the men's race between Peter Eliasson, Anders Auckland, Stanislav Rezak and Øystein Pedersen. And it was Auckland who was continuing to lead the way from Rezak. The Czech Republic skier right on the tails of the championship leader, and Eliasson was in third. Pedersen, well, the pace too much for the sprint leader as he drops off the back of the leading pack, and so it was between these three for the podium finish in Mora. Auckland a winner in 2004, Rezak taking part in his 17th Vassa Loppa, and Eliasson, well, making his debut in this classic race. Could the experience of Auckland and Rezak see them through to the finish in first place? Or could Eliasson, at the first time of asking, win the Vassa Loppa? It was all set up nicely for a battle royal over the final 11 kilometres. Oh, with 10.5 to go, there was absolutely nothing to choose between the three leaders. Auckland again leading the way from Rezak and Eliasson. Eliasson just happy to sit at the back of this trio. You can see Øystein Pedersen just at the back of your screen there, 25 seconds down the track. No way back for him. But Auckland keeping up this relentless pace at the front. A little look over his shoulder to see what, if anyone was coming, but it was down to these three with just 10 kilometres of the 90 remaining. The pace of Auckland had put pay to the entire pack, apart from two, Rezak and Eliasson. Eliasson just popping out from the back of the three to do his turn at the front. And Auckland just steps across to slot in behind his young compatriot. So the final checkpoint, the 6th checkpoint at Eldoris, just 9 kilometres from the finish, sees Eliasson leading Auckland from Rezak. Well, meanwhile, in the women's race, Kowalczyk was arriving at Hochberg, 19 kilometres from the finish, and Kowalczyk was a long, long way in front of the chasers. Britta Johansson Norgen, Sarina Bonner of Switzerland, and Leila Cavelli of Norway. Kowalczyk in her first Vassa Loppa, and she was laying down a brilliant race. With a large lead over the rest of the women's field. Kowalczyk stopping the clock in Hochberg at 3 hours 41 minutes 7 seconds. Still happy to continue without any refreshment. Just under 20 kilometers to go then for the Polish athletes. Justyna Kowalczyk. And that's the finish line in Mora. And the fans wait to see who is going to be at the head of this men's field. Desperately close between last time we saw them. Here they are, Peter Eliasson, Anders Auckland and Stanislav Rezak. And still with 6 kilometers to go after, what, 3 3/4 hours of racing. You can throw a handkerchief over these three as they battle it out. Who's got the strength in the arms and the legs to bring it home? Rezak certainly looks like he's starting to struggle with 1.7 to go. And Anders Auckland looking to add to his 2004 victory. But Peter Eliasson at this stage looking like the stronger of the two. Certainly too strong for Rezak, who dropped out the back of the field at this stage. Into Mora, it was going to be a battle between the two Norwegians. Rezak, who in his previous 16 attempts had never managed to win, and I'm sad to say for him it wasn't going to be this year. Top 6 in the last 7 years for Stanislav Rezak. Peter Eliasson, his first Vassa Loppa, looking to try and get one over on his more experienced teammate. Auckland 43 years of age, Rezak 42, Eliasson 29 years of age, 600 meters to go, and it was still Eliasson that was leading the way. Auckland was trying all he could do to get back at his young teammate, but Eliasson leaving it all out on this track. Peter Eliasson had too much in the tank for Anders Auckland, who put so much into this race and ultimately end up just shy of enough. The crowds cheering home the leading racers, and Eliasson would stretch away towards the finish. To win at the first attempt. The crowd lifting the two Norwegians. No home joy with Swedish athletes, but joy for Norway as they win for only the 6th time, but they've won the last 3. Eliasson, the winner of the 2015 Vassa Loppa. Anders Auckland, winner of 2004, has to settle for 2nd this time around. And Stanislav Rezak, another brilliant performance from the athlete from the Czech Republic. He is in 3rd position. Big cheer for him as he crossed the line. But Peter Eliasson, delighted to have taken the victory here. The 2015 Vassa Loppa. That's your 1, 2, 3. Eliasson, Auckland, Rezak. And the only other time the top 3 have all been non-Swedish was 2004, when Anders Auckland won ahead of Raoul Oll and Jürgen Auckland. Oscar Svard was the best Swede on that day in 4th. In the women's race, well, Kowalczyk was still in a league of her own. Just shy of 4 3/4 hours racing for the pole. But Justyna Kowalczyk, like Eliasson in her first Vassa Loppa, would take the garland and the win. And now she allows herself to smile as she dons the winner's wreath. And a brilliant performance from Justyna Kowalczyk of Poland, 4:41.02. So your top three in the men: Stanislav Rezak of the Czech Republic in his 17th Vassa Lopa, another top six finish for him. Third, Anders Auckland, the leader of the Swiss Ski Classic standings, winner in 2004, set much of the pace, he was second. But Petter Eliasson of Norway in his first Vassa Lopa makes it another Norwegian win. 3 consecutive wins now for Sweden's biggest rival when it comes to the Nordic events. Joy for him, a brilliant race, perfectly timed from Petter Eliasson, and gets the congratulations from his compatriot. So confirmation of the men's result, the best of the Swedes, Jerry Arlin in 8th position. But look at Norway there. What's that? 9 of the top 12, all from Norway. 2 Swedes and just Stanislav Rezak breaking up that Norwegian dominance. As for the women's race, Sarina Bonner of Switzerland, she was in 3rd place with Britta Johansson Norgren of Sweden in 2nd. But take nothing away from the winner, Justyna Kowalczyk of Poland. A brilliant time, won by 4 minutes and 16 seconds in the women's race. Justyna Kowalczyk, the winner. So that's it from me, Charlie Broom. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the 2015 Vassa Lopa. We hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.